lives. Father, thank you for the things that you are going to teach us tonight. Help us to be open and receptive to your word. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
One thing I want to mention to you before we dive into Judges 17 is that on Saturday, April the 2nd, Mount Dora Children's Home is hosting a benefit dinner at the Herbert Center on the campus of UNF. This is a free dinner, yet it is also a fundraising dinner, so donations will be gratefully accepted that night. The purpose of the benefit dinner is to expose the various churches in Jacksonville to specifics about the ongoing work at Mount Dora Children's Home. There are several residents this year for foster children as well. Oh, not foster children, you're just in the orphanage. But also there are, I think, either 2 or 3 moms there that they are working with to transition them from very difficult situations, help them get on their feet with their families and move on to a productive level of life. And that's been an amazing work, an amazing additional work they've taken on in the last 5 or 6 years. And when we were at San Jose, we saw the direct benefit of that with someone from our congregation there at the time that was blessed by this work. So if you like free food and you love what's going on in Mount Dora, I have tickets. You can see me after class tonight, or you can see me Sunday. What I would ask you to do is just fill in a little bit of information here. You don't need to fill in the whole thing. Just put your name, because I've got your contact information. Just put your name on it. I'll give you the ticket part of it. I send this in to Mount Dora on Monday, so they'll know who to expect, and make sure you got something better than a rubber chicken to eat that night. And, we'll go from there. But by the way, Mount Dora's Dr. Mast has been there for about a year now. He's doing an exceptional job as the overall president of the whole school and all of that. So just a little plug on that. You've probably been through this before. Most of you have been in churches and understand that sometimes weird things happen. So there was this Sunday in a pretty small church where the regular minister was unable to preach at the last minute. The speaker of the day was introduced to one of the older ladies in the foyer as a substitute preacher. And she said, "What do you mean, substitute preacher? I don't understand substitute preacher. You're either a preacher, you're not a preacher. What's a substitute preacher?" And the man tried to explain, it's kind of like a substitute in school. It's someone who fills in for the real thing. So he then pointed to this window in the auditorium where there was cardboard in an open spot. So part of the glass had been shattered, and they had cardboard in that little spot in the window. And he said, "You see that cardboard there is kind of a substitute, and that's what the preacher's going to be doing today. It's he's just filling the spot." So he preached a sermon, and the older lady was absolutely delighted with his presentation when he was done, and she felt moved to give him a compliment. And she said, "Preacher man, that was a good message. I just want you to know, I don't think you're a substitute at all. I think you're a real pain." I have heard worse. Tonight we're talking about substitutes. We're talking about cheap, sorry, no good, not substitute teachers. We're talking about cheap, sorry substitutes for the real thing. And when cheap, sorry substitutes are put in place of the real thing, chaos ensues. So tonight we're going to read a lot of chaos. We've been in Judges for a while. I'll refer you to our rent cycle repeat pattern on the board of rest, rebellion, retribution, repentance, restoration, and revival. We're done with that starting tonight. Okay? Because basically when we come to the end of Samson's life, we've come to the end of the chronological order of Judges. Okay? So from Judges 17 through 21 is basically some things that were happening during the first 16 chapters. Does that make sense? So we're done looking at specific judges. We're seeing some more about the lay of the land while these various judges were ruling and reigning. Now, you may or may not remember, all the way back in January, when we looked at Judges chapter 2, we saw that the Israelites were having a really hard time with foreign idols. Tonight, we're going to see the Israelites having a really hard time with domestic, homegrown idols. The unifying theme between now and we got 2 more weeks, this week and next week. The unifying theme of the rest of Judges is Israel had no king. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. So what we read is the results of Israel having no king and everyone doing what's right in their eyes. So here's what I'm going to do, and I know this isn't the way I normally teach, but hopefully this will make sense. With your indulgence, I'm going to read, instead of in bits and pieces, I'm going to read all of Judges 17 and 18. When I finish Judges 18, we're going to look at this holistically, not in little bits, but we're going to look at it from more of the varying people we encounter in these 2 chapters. So when we're done reading chapter 18, I'm going to want us to talk for a few minutes about the mother that we're about to be exposed to. I'm going to want us to talk about Micah. I'm going to want us to talk about Jonathan. And I'm going to want us to talk about the Danites and some common themes and some contrast and that sort of thing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. Took me longer to introduce it than to do it. Sorry. All right. Now a man named Micah from the hill country of Ephraim said to his mother, "The 1,100 shekels of silver were taken from you, and about which I heard you utter a curse. I took that silver. I have it with me." Then his mother said, "The Lord bless you, my son." Okay. When he returned the 1,100 of shekels of silver to his mother, when he returned that, she said, "I solemnly consecrate my silver to the Lord for my son to make an image overlaid with silver. I will give it back to you." So after he returned the silver to his mother, she took 200, not 1,100, 200 shekels of silver and gave them to a silversmith who used them to make an idol. It was put in Micah's house. Now this man Micah had a shrine, and he made an ephod and some household gods. He installed one of his sons as his priest. Remember, in those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did as they saw fit. So a young Levite from Bethlehem in Judah, that's an interesting phrase all its own, who had been living within the clan of Judah, he left that town in search of some other place to stay. And on his way, he came to Micah's house in the hill country of Ephraim. Micah asked, "Where are you from?" He said, "Well, I'm a Levite from Bethlehem in Judah," he said, "and I'm looking for a place to stay." Oh, Micah said to him, "Live with me. Be my father and priest. I'll give you 10 shekels of silver a year, your clothes and your food." So the Levite agreed to live with him, and the young man became like one of his sons to him. Then Micah installed the Levite. The young man became his priest. We don't read what happened to his son. Lived in his house. Watch what Micah says in verse 13. "Now I know that the Lord will be good to me since this Levite has become my priest." It gets better. In those days, Israel had no king. And in those days, the tribe of the Danites was seeking a place of their own where they might settle. They had one, by the way, because they had not yet come into an inheritance among the tribes of Israel. So the Danites sent 5 of their leading men from Zorah and Eshtaol to spy out the land and explore it. These men represented all the Danites. They told them, "Go, explore the land." Sounds like Joshua and Caleb. So they entered the hill country of Ephraim, and they came to the house of Micah, where they spent the night. And when they were near Micah's house, they recognized the voice of the young Levite. So they turned in there and asked him, Who brought you here? What are you doing in this place? Why are you here? He told them what Micah had done for him. And he said, he's hired me and I'm his priest. Then they said to him, please inquire of God to learn whether or not our journey will be successful. The priest answered them, go in peace, your journey has the Lord's approval. So the 5 men left and came to Laish, where they saw that the people were living in safety like the Sidonians, peace and secure. And since their land lacked nothing, they were quite prosperous. Also, they lived a long way from the Sidonians. They had no relationship with anyone else. So when they returned to Zorah and Eshtaol, the Pharaoh Danites asked them, how'd you find things? They said, come on, let's attack. We've seen the land. It's very good. Aren't you going to do something? Don't hesitate to go there and take it over. When you get there, you'll find an unsuspecting people, a spacious land that God has put into your hands, a land that lacks nothing whatsoever. Then 600 men of the Danites, armed for battle, set out from Zorah and Eshtaol. And on their way up, they came up near Camp Kiriath Jearim in Judah. And that is why this place west of Kiriath Jearim is called Manahadan to this day. And from there, they went on to the hill country of Ephraim and came to Micah's house. So the 5 men who had spied out the land of Laish said to their fellow Danites, do you know that one of these houses has an ephod, some household gods, and an image overlaid with silver? Now you know what to do. So they turned in there. They went to the house of the young Levite at Micah's place and greeted him. The 600 Danites armed for battle stood at the entrance of the gate. The 5 men who had spied out the land, they went inside, took the idol, the ephod, and the household gods, while the priest and the 600 armed men stood at the entrance of the gate. When the 5 men went into Micah's house and took the idol, the ephod, and the household gods, the priest said to them, what are you doing? They answered him, be quiet. Don't say a word. Come with us and be our father and priest. Isn't it better that you serve a tribe and a clan in Israel as a priest rather than just one man's house? The priest was very pleased. He took the ephod, the household gods, and the idol, and he went right along with the people, putting their little children, their livestock, and their possessions in front. They turned away and left. When they had gone some distance from Micah's house, the men who lived near Micah were called together and overtook the Danites. As they shouted after them, the Danites turned and said to Micah, what's the matter with you that you called out your men to fight? He replied, you took the gods I made and my priest and went away. What else do I have? Ooh, how can you ask what's the matter with you? The Danites answered, don't you argue with us, or some of the men may get angry and attack you, and you and your family will lose your lives. So the Danites went their way, and Micah, seeing that they were too strong for him, turned around and went back home. Then they took what Micah had made, and his priest went on to Laish against a people at peace and secure. They attacked them with the sword and burned down their city. There was no one to rescue them because they lived a long way from Sidon and had no relationship with anyone else. The city was in the valley named Beth Rio. So the Danites rebuilt the city and settled there. They named it Dan after their ancestor Dan, who was born to Israel, though the city used to be called Laish. And there the Danites set up for themselves the idol, and Jonathan, the son of Gershon, the son of Moses, and his sons were priests for the tribe of Dan until the time of the captivity of the land. They continued to use the idol Micah had made all the time. This is when we read about God. All that time, God is in the house of Shiloh. All right, who feels like they need to take a shower after reading that? All right. Okay, let's break down our characters. I don't want to spend too much time on the mom not because you're not important, but because there are some others in here that are all intriguing. So let's start with the mom and spend just a minute or two on her, and then we'll move on to some others. The mom, pretty much everything we read about the mom is in the first 6 verses of chapter 17. So if you go back there, take a quick look. Tell me what sticks out in your mind, what grabs your attention.
First she curses and then she says, bless you.
All right. Who raised Della raised her hand. Let me hear from Della, and I'm going to come back and comment on that. Go ahead, Della.
She gave the shackles to be turned into silver that was made to God.
Oh, boy. Okay. All right. So Have you ever had one of those conversations when you send a message through a different channel, but you want to make sure they hear the message? So I'm going to talk to Sherry, but I'm going to talk to Sherry at a volume that makes sure that Stephanie hears it. That I'm sending a message to Stephanie. I'm not going to talk to her directly. I'm going to talk to Sherry. So imagine a mom, and I know this is a little speculation, she may disagree. Imagine the mom laying down a curse and laying it out strong enough that the son hears the curse. Moms, do you usually know when your kids are doing things? I never understood how my mom had eyes in the back of her head. When I thought about doing something wrong, she already knew. Okay? So she lays down this curse, and then she says, when he fesses up, why do you think he fessed up, by the way? I'm just curious. I don't have an answer. Why do you think he fessed up?
Well, maybe he feared the curse.
Maybe fear the curse. Sure.
I would.
Yeah, sure.
I've also seen a mother's wrath.
Yeah. I got you, man. So possibly for those reasons, he fesses up. Now, when he fesses up, because of what he has done and because of the sin he has committed, what he should have done according to Levitical law is, even though it's his mom, is repay plus a fifth. Okay? That was Jewish law. Mom pretty much waives that. And instead, mom says, thank you for the 1,100. I'm going to sacrifice it all to the Lord, which of course means take 200 of the 1,100 and build an idol. Any of that bother y'all?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Mary.
She consecrated the money to the Lord to make an idol. Mary,
She's muted.
Mary, you're muted.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me
Now we
now?
got it. We got you.
This mother is, when I heard growing up, talking out of both sides of the house. She said, she's gonna consecrate herself to the Lord, and in the same breath, she's gonna make an idol.
Yeah,
Right.
So which one is she gonna serve?
yeah. Yeah, it's coming out. It's coming out both. And you see that with I'm consecrating 1,100, but I'm really only using 200. I'm consecrating to the Lord, but we're making an idol. This is called hedging your bets. In my mind, anyway. All right, Paula, go ahead, and then I'm going to ask you one question, then we'll move on.
I just have a question because I don't know all the before.
Oh, it's okay.
Did the mother know he had done it, had taken it when she said she was going to curse?
My guess is she probably had some idea what her son was up to. We don't know that for sure. Okay, good question. All right, tell me some commands that the mom has broke. Just the mom. We'll give Micah his fair treatment, but some commands that the mom's broke.
Shall not make any idol or graven image.
Graven image. Hello. Okay. All right. Good. All right. Now, right along with that, obviously, anytime you see that, no other gods before me comes right there with it. Because those kind of like you can't have one without the other. I would suggest that there is an element of bearing false witness in the midst of all of this. And I would submit that there's an element of taking God's name in vain in the midst of all of this.
Mike,
Jeannie, go ahead.
last week, it was raised, Greg raised the point that this 1,100 curiously was the same amount that was mentioned in the previous chapter. And is there any connection?
I couldn't tell you from my information if there's a direct connection. other than it was about 28 pounds from a weight perspective. And in 2009 monetary value, it was about $6,000. Which in my mind is the God she's worshiping the whole time. All right, Micah's name means who is like God. That is his name. It's up to us now to determine to what extent he lived up to his name. All right, he lives in Ephraim. That means he lives close to Shiloh. That matters because Shiloh is where he should have been worshiping during this season, okay? All right. We know, well, tell me what you see about Micah. I don't need me telling you. Tell me what you see.
It says they already had a shrine.
All right.
He's already down the dark path.
All right, so we know he's already headed in a bad direction. He's set up a shrine of idols, okay? Who does he ordain to be his priest first?
One of his sons.
All right. First thing he does is ordain his son. Now, Mary's just told us who's supposed to be ordained as priest from the tribe of Levi. Okay?
Right.
Anyone who serves as a priest outside the tribe of Levi, what should have happened to them? All right. According to Numbers chapter 3, verse 10. All right. Where is he worshiping? He's not worshiping in Shiloh. Where's he worshiping?
In his house.
Yeah.
As far as we know, in his home.
House of Micah.
Yeah, in his own yard, in his own spot. Okay? All
Is
right.
he using Zoom?
I don't know if it's or not.
Heathens.
Jeannie wins the prize. That was the best one tonight. I have to see if Zoom was around in the days of judges. So his church is quite convenient. And it's also convenient on this level. If you're going to pay a tithe, guess where you're paying the tithe?
To yourself.
It's your church. Okay, it's your place. Okay. Now, with all of that said, he once someone from Levi does show up, what happens to his son? His flesh and blood.
Gets kicked to the curb.
We never read about him again. Okay, he's just gone from this whole narrative. He's just gone. Okay. So he calls, then he calls this guy, the priest. He calls, didn't he say, come be my father?
Yes, yes.
Come live with me, be my father. But what does he treat him like?
Servant.
Son or servant. All right. So who's really in control of this whole thing?
Micah.
Micah. Okay. He's kind of like using this priest kind of like a good luck charm. All right.
And Mike,
Yeah, go ahead, Jeannie.
to me, it's so interesting, verse 13. Are we about verse 13?
Yeah, go ahead.
That it says, now I know that the Lord will be good to me since this Levite has become my priest. And so often many of us, all of us, interpret signs wrongly and apply them to our own way of thinking to justify our actions.
Right.
Yep.
I'll preach. I'll preach. Now, we see his motives in that statement. The whole good luck charm, I'm trying to access God for his own benefit. I saw this quote from Tim Keller this week. He said, the purpose of religion is to get God to serve you. The purpose of faith is to get you to serve God. And I think there is a significant difference. Now, Micah later in chapter 18 discovers that all of his gods are not particularly powerful because when his shrine is stolen, He can't do much about it. All right, tell me some commands that Micah broke.
No other gods.
No other gods. Same as before.
He stole from his mother
Yeah. He's a thief. He stole. Do not steal.
and not honoring his father and mother.
Didn't honor his father and mother. Or false witness. Obviously, he was coveting. I got 7 out of 10.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't guess you should call that impressive. Man.
If it wasn't going to the right place to worship, you could probably throw in not honoring the Sabbath.
Yeah.
too.
Oh, yeah, no, he wasn't, he was desecrating the Sabbath day, maybe 8.
So,
Maybe.
Mike,
He almost hit, he more than grand slam. Troy, go ahead.
yeah, sin propagates more sin. If you, indulge in one, it usually leads to others. It doesn't just stay by itself most of the time. Tolerated.
Absolutely right, Troy. Building and building and building. What God do you think Michael was really worshiping? We've kind of identified the mom is really trying to worship money. Do you think Michael was ultimately trying to worship? I have an opinion, but I'm interested in yours. Yeah.
Power. Power to be
Yeah.
like a Levite almost.
Yeah, maybe some power and control. And if it's power and control, ultimately, it's all about, it's all about me. So, all right. Tell me about John. Go ahead, Paul. I'm sorry.
I was wondering when he told his mother he's one that took it, I was wondering if he was hoping that she would give him some of it.
Well, it kind of all came out that way eventually. Okay. All right. Let's talk about Jonathan. Right tribe, wrong location. For a priest, at least he's a Levite. We don't know his name's Jonathan, by the way, till we get to the very end of this, at the end of chapter 18. That's why I'm calling him Jonathan. His name. It's at the very end of this, at the end of chapter 18. Tell me some observations you have about Jonathan in this passage.
Do anything for the right price?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Sell me out to the highest bidder.
Yep.
All right. He's right there for this man, and by the way, for a priest, it looks like he's on a career path. He's gone from a house church to a whole tribe.
Right.
So, not exactly a God blessed path of upward mobility. All right. So, for sale to the highest bidder. What else? What does he say about Micah's shrine, by the way? He's in theory, he's a Levitical priest. So what does he say about Micah's shrine? Exactly. He's silent.
Nothing.
He just goes in and starts doing his thing. Now, when the Danites came in, we'll talk about Danites in a minute. When the Danites come down and they want to consult him, what does he do then? We're in chapter 18. The Danites are coming saying, we want to go take this land, but we're coming to consult with you, priest. Tell us, is God going to bless us in this? What did he do?
He took the easy path and said, of course he is.
Yeah. We do not read that he consulted God. Now, that would be a whole nother loaded thing based on how he's conducting his affairs. Whatever you want to hear.
Yeah.
All right. Didn't even pretend to consult. Ironically, he consulted neither God nor did he consult any of those idols because he knew better. Okay, so he doesn't try that, but he doesn't consult God either. Do you think there's any chance that God would have blessed a move of the Danites to go and to take somebody else's land that are peace abiding. I mean, we know they went into Canaan, and we could debate how awful the Canaanites had been for 400 years before the Israelites got there. All we read about these people is they're just minding their own business. Makes me think of somebody. I don't know about y'all.
Yeah.
Just sitting here trying to mind their own. Kind of the Bible Belt of this region of the world. I don't know if they were or not, but just,
Troy has.
yeah, Troy, go ahead. I'm sorry. They're helping me out here.
Yeah, that's all right. You know, this whole story is filled with examples of something that I think some people don't understand about the Old Testament. And that is, it's commonly called narrative is not normative. And that means that, yeah, that means that just because something happened and no comment was made on it right at the time, doesn't mean it's okay. Like, as we read this, there was no comment about the idols, okay, right there at that point, but it doesn't make it right. And you know, there's that happens a lot. And we are just, as we read, we are to interpret as we are so doing, you know, in light of the whole Bible. And, you know, just because something is, anyway, I don't want to belabor the point, but that's my point there, is that just because something is mentioned and not commented on doesn't make it right.
Oh, absolutely. Let's go Scott in here.
Maybe if you were to read this passage with heavy sarcasm in your tone of voice, as if you were complaining to like another person, oh, well, so-and-so did this and did that. Like, it might read that way to put emphasis on the things that were not quite right.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's like, really?
Well, and the Levite was probably as much or more wrong than Micah for even allowing himself to be consecrated as priest.
Sure.
Because coming from the tribe, he would have known, had some of that background.
A command steady broke. Round 3. No other gods before me in graven image. All right.
He was essentially condoning that behavior by allowing himself to be put up in that position.
All right. Didn't seem to have much relationship with the truth. I don't know if there's so many things about this that, again, Troy mentioned it's just spoken factually and it's just left to lay there for you to go, This is an ancestor of Moses. That just hits. It's just one other thing that makes you go, oh.
A very near descendant of Moses.
Yeah.
Grandson.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we got 5 minutes.
I have to ask a question.
Oh, far.
Actually, what are Levites? I'm not, missed something way.
Levites were one of the 12 tribes of Israel, but they were the priestly tribe. They were not allotted a specific territory. Instead, they were given the function of serving as priests, as representatives between God and man. So the priests were in different places, but they didn't have their own place. They were supposed to be especially set apart for God's service. Most of them served between the 20 and 60. Is that right? Most of them. They were the men served as priests between the ages of 20 and 60. Good question. All right, let's talk about the Danites. Why are they looking for a place to settle?
Because they didn't have one.
Why didn't they have one?
They hadn't received their inheritance.
Right.
That's right. They didn't take their inheritance. They would not take the land that God had given them because they were too weak. They didn't want to root out the Philistines. So they're the first tribe. That's why you read about in Judges chapter 1, verse 34, that they don't take. In fact, they get chased back up into the woods and back into the hills. So what they do is they're going to find somebody weaker than they are. And when they find somebody weaker than they are, they're going to attack them, they're going to burn down their city, and they're going to set up residence in a place that God never intended for them to possess. To help them in their efforts, they stole a priest. So they basically are seeking guidance from a rent-a-priest.
Because if they do that, they'll be legitimate, right?
Sure, that'll make it legit. Now, if they really wanted to know what God thought, all they had to do was go to Shiloh and inquire of the Lord. Okay? That's not far. But they don't. So interestingly, the city of Dan, actually the city of Laish, later becomes one of the places where Jeroboam set up the idolatrous calves for the northern kingdom when they worshiped. It's the same place. Why didn't any other, there's so many other tribes, why did none of them stop the Danites from doing what they were doing? There are 11 other tribes. Nobody stopped them from going down and taking somebody else's land.
I would guess that they were complacent. They're too busy doing their own thing.
They're too busy doing their own thing, and they're just as messed up as they are. All right. Let me show you one interesting note about the Danites before we wrap up. And this one is going to take us to Revelation chapter 7, actually. This isn't something I preach a sermon about, but it's just something that's interesting to me that I want to point out in Revelation chapter 7. As John is receiving this vision, we've got this number of those who were sealed, 144,000 from all the tribes of Israel. That's a significant number, but it's not a literal number. We could talk about that another night. I want you to look at this listing of tribes from verse 5 to verse 8. How many tribes do you see? What tribe is missing?
Dan.
Dan.
Dan's not there.
Yeah.
So the only tribe that's missing from this breakdown in Revelation chapter 7 of the number who were sealed was from the tribe of Dan. I just found that to be quite interesting.
And why does it list the tribe of Joseph and not Ephraim?
That's a good
Because it
question.
mentions Manasseh.
But it mentions Ephraim as the tribe of Joseph. And Ephraim, we've already seen.
Right.
We've seen plenty in Judges about Ephraim that makes you go, ugh.
Yeah.
All right. So in these two chapters, we have a false religion set up through a theft of money. We have a priest who gives up on Yahweh to provide the religious legitimacy to a false religion. Then you have a people who aren't following God. They decide they're just going to grab whatever they can get their hands on, steal the false gods and the false priest, destroy a peaceful city, make it their own, set up an altar to the false god who leads the people astray for generations to come. Augustine said that idolatry is worshiping anything that ought to be used or using anything that ought to be worshiped. I'll say that again. Idolatry is worshiping anything that ought to be used or using anything that ought to be worshiped. So last question for tonight. 2 times in this chapter, 2 times next week, the writer's going to say Israel had no king. 3 times it says they're doing what's right in their own eyes. What point is the writer trying to make?
One implication you can get is that the king helps them follow God. I don't know what to go for.
It should have been. Okay, Troy.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that in this particular case, that God was actually supposed to be their king, and he wasn't.
Run.
There you go. Bingo.
And that's it. God was supposed to be their king. So.
And because God is not their king, this is what's happening. This is what a society that does whatever it sees fit looks like. Now, notice, this does not have to mean a conscious rejection of God, nor does it require no longer calling on God or ceasing religious activity. In fact, there's a lot of religious activity in Judges 17. But this is all on Israel's terms, according to what every person wanted to do, whatever works for you. Go ahead.
Something interesting about idolatry, much about idolatry is us putting something in a position almost that we should be in, even as a false reflection of God into the world. We are creating something in the image of God when in fact we have been created in the image of God.
Yeah.
And when perfect, yes. When we are idolatrous, God gives us what we want.
He does.
This account in Judges 17 is a perfect example of that. In case Romans 1 was not explicit enough.
Yeah.
Micah wanted a commodity, and God gave him a commodity.
Yeah.
And someone else wanted the asset that he had, so they took it.
Yeah.
And God gave Micah exactly what he wanted. And then it was taken, and he said, "What do I have left?" And that's nothing.
Anytime we try to remake God into our image, this is where we land. But it gets better. It's 19, 20, and 21 next week. You can stand it one more week.
Because it's
Paula.
I don't really know, but I'm just reading it, okay? 1824, this commentary in the NIV study is saying, Micah's last speech is pathetic and pitiful. He began by stealing from his own mother and ended by putting it all to worse thieves than himself.
Yep. That's exactly right.
Mike, there's one other thing if I could add real quick.
All right. Troy gets the last word tonight because it's 5 after 8 and I'm gonna get in trouble.
Sorry. But in
I
the
want
last
you
part
to go, man.
last part of chapter 17, it says, "Now I know the Lord will be good to me, since this Levite has become my priest."
Yep.
And it almost seems like the Levite himself has become an idol, or a good luck charm of some sort.
Yep.
And and anyway, I just thought I would throw that out.
Yep, exactly. For his benefit. Yep. Hey, thank you for everybody hanging on. Next week we'll finish. The next place we're going for study will be just for a couple of months. We're going to talk about finding Jesus in Isaiah. We're not going to study all 65, 66 chapters of Isaiah, but we are going to look at 12 specific places where we find Jesus in Isaiah. Some of them you know very well. I anticipate 2 or 3 are going to surprise you. So that's where we'll be going. 19 through 21 next week. Let me pray you out. Thank you, Lord, for the chance to go through your word tonight and be soberly reminded that you alone are God and anything else is a cheap knockoff substitute. May we honor you with every fiber of our being. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Hey, thanks, everybody. Y'all have a good week. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, brother.
Hey, Troy, thanks for jumping on, man.
Saying that,